In the control tower of Fort Kestrel at 11,000 feet, a systems engineer stared at her screen in horror. What started as routine drone surveillance took a catastrophic turn when 12 Rangers vanished into a communications blackout, and she recognized the digital signature of the attack. Lieutenant Commander Sanaa El-Amin wasn't your typical base technician. For 3 years, she had buried a past most people didn't know existed, hiding skills from a classified program called RAVENLINE, where neural interfaces turned operators into tactical weapons. When she detected the encrypted pattern in the corrupted data stream, she had no idea she was staring at a ghost from her past, one who had captured her best friend and 11 other soldiers. Sanaa defied direct orders in a desperate solo infiltration that would expose everything she'd spent years concealing. What began as a rescue mission would become a battle for the future of human consciousness itself. Fort Kestrel would never be the same after one engineer proved that sometimes the most dangerous weapons aren't the ones you carry. They're the ones hardwired into your mind. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The morning air at Fort Kestrel carried the sharp bite of mountain cold, thin and clean at 11,000 feet. Lieutenant Commander Sanaa El-Amin sat in the drone control tower, her fingers dancing across 3 separate keyboards with practiced efficiency. Around her, monitors displayed overlapping feeds of terrain maps, satellite imagery, and real-time telemetry from 6 surveillance drones orbiting the valley below. She paused, her dark eyes narrowing at a flickering anomaly in the encryption channel. The data stream stuttered for 0.3 seconds, barely perceptible, yet distinctly wrong. She pulled up the diagnostic overlay, watching the signal strength indicators dance in patterns that shouldn't exist in natural interference. El-Amin, status check. Captain Elias Boone's voice crackled through her headset, all authority and no patience. Nominal, sir, she replied automatically, though her attention remained fixed on the anomaly. Ranger unit is 15 minutes from checkpoint Alpha. Below in the staging area, Sergeant Dana Velez laughed at something one of her squad members said, the sound carrying faintly through the open window. Sanaa watched her friend check her rifle for the 3rd time, that familiar pre-mission ritual. Dana glanced up at the control tower, offering a lazy 2-fingered salute that made Sanaa's lips twitch into something almost resembling a smile. The encryption channel flickered again. This time Sanaa caught the signature embedded in the distortion, a mathematical pattern she recognized but couldn't immediately place. Her fingers flew across the keyboard, isolating the anomaly and running it through her personal analysis algorithms. Captain Boone, I'm detecting irregular patterns in the comms network. Recommend delaying the patrol until I can run a full diagnostic. The silence that followed stretched too long. When Boone finally responded, his tone carried the weight of a man who'd heard too many technical concerns that amounted to nothing. Negative, Commander. Weather interference has been intermittent all week. Log it and continue monitoring. Sir, this isn't weather. The signal degradation is following a structured pattern. Your recommendation is noted and declined. Boone's voice sharpened. The Rangers deploy on schedule. Keep the drones active and report any confirmed threats. Theoretical anomalies aren't sufficient cause to scrub a mission. Sanaa's jaw tightened, but she responded with crisp professionalism. Understood, sir. She watched the Rangers move out, 12 soldiers in tactical formation, disappearing into the rocky terrain. Dana brought up the rear, her movements fluid and confident. The surveillance drones tracked their progress, infrared signatures painting them as bright points against the cold mountain landscape. 20 minutes into the patrol, the encryption channel stuttered again. This time Sanaa was ready. She captured the raw data stream, routing it through an isolated analysis partition that Boone didn't know existed. The code signature resolved itself with crystalline clarity, and her blood turned to ice water. She knew this pattern. She'd seen it years ago, in a place that officially didn't exist, working on a project that had been buried so deep that even its classification level was classified. The pattern was a handshake protocol, Someone testing the network's defenses, probing for weaknesses with the kind of sophisticated approach that suggested intimate knowledge of military communications architecture. Whoever was behind this wasn't some random hostile actor. They understood the system from the inside. Her fingers moved faster now, pulling up logs from the past 72 hours. The anomalies had been there all along, disguised as routine fluctuations. Micro delays in drone responses, encryption keys that rotated 0.2 seconds off their scheduled intervals, firmware updates that contained 3 extra lines of code hidden in comment fields. Someone was inside their network. Someone had been inside their network for days. Ranger Actual to base, approaching checkpoint Alpha. No contacts, proceeding to... The transmission cut off midword. Her hands froze over the keyboards. Every monitor in the tower displayed the same thing. Static. Not the crackling interference of jammed signals, but the smooth, even static of a perfectly executed communications blackout. Ranger Actual, do you copy? She kept her voice calm despite the adrenaline spike. Dana, do you copy? Nothing. She switched frequencies, cycling through backup channels and emergency protocols. Every single channel returned the same flat static. The surveillance drones showed the Ranger's last known position, but the video feeds were frozen, displaying perfectly still images that couldn't possibly be real-time footage. She pulled up the drone control interface and sent a direct command to pan the camera. The image didn't move. She tried a different drone. Same result. All 6 surveillance units were transmitting data, but none of them were responding to commands. Captain Boone, we have a situation. She toggled the internal comm. Complete communications lost with Ranger unit. All drone feeds are compromised. Boone arrived in the control tower within 90 seconds, his uniform crisp despite the early hour. He studied the monitors with the practiced eye of a man who'd spent 20 years in combat zones. Equipment failure? Negative, sir. This is a coordinated blackout. Sanaa pulled up the technical analysis, highlighting the patterns she'd been tracking. Someone has compromised our entire surveillance network. The drones are transmitting, but they're feeding us recorded footage, not live feeds. The Rangers walked into a dead zone, and we can't see them. Boone's expression hardened. Hostile electronic warfare? More sophisticated than standard jamming. Sanaa's fingers moved across the keyboard, pulling up deeper system logs. This is targeted, surgical. Whoever did this knows our protocols intimately. Recommendations? Send a recovery team immediately. Restore communications manually if necessary. And sir, we need to assume the Rangers walked into an ambush. Someone knew exactly where they'd be and exactly when our surveillance would go dark. For a moment, she saw genuine concern break through Boone's rigid command presence. Then his jaw set, and he was the captain again. Prep a full diagnostic. I want every system audited within the hour. Nobody leaves or enters this base until we know what we're dealing with. He moved toward the door, already pulling out his radio to coordinate the response. Sanaa watched him go, then turned back to her monitors. Her hands shook slightly as she pulled up a hidden partition on her personal workstation, a partition containing tools and protocols that no ordinary systems engineer should possess. The frozen drone feed showed Dana and her squad frozen mid-stride, weapons ready, unaware that they'd already disappeared into someone's trap. Sanaa's reflection stared back at her from the darkened monitor beside it, and for just a moment, she let herself acknowledge the truth she'd been hiding for 3 years. She wasn't just a systems engineer. She'd never been just a systems engineer. And whoever had done this, whoever had the skill and knowledge to infiltrate Fort Kestrel's defenses so completely, they weren't just hostile. They were a ghost from the same past Sanaa had tried so hard to bury. The base operations center transformed into controlled chaos within the hour. Captain Boone stood at the central command table, surrounded by officers reviewing maps and contingency protocols. The atmosphere carried the particular tension of professionals facing a crisis they couldn't fully understand. Sanaa worked in the corner, her workstation isolated from the main network by her own design, Around her, 3 monitors displayed cascading lines of code, packet analysis, and system diagnostics that would look like abstract art to anyone without her specific expertise. She'd been analyzing the corrupted data streams for 90 minutes, and what she'd found made the situation exponentially worse than Boone understood. "Commander El-Amin, status report." Boone's voice cut through the murmur of urgent conversations. "The interference isn't external, sir. The malware is embedded in our own firmware. It's been there for at least 72 hours, probably longer. Whoever planted it has complete visibility into our operations." Major Richards, Boone's second-in-command, stepped closer. "You're saying this is an inside job?" "I'm saying someone with intimate knowledge of our systems architected this attack." Sanaa pulled up a visualization of the network compromise, color-coded nodes showing the spread of corrupted code. "The malware is sophisticated, adaptive pattern recognition, behavioral learning algorithms. This isn't just surveillance malware, it's predictive. It learns operators' responses and adjusts its camouflage accordingly." Boone studied the display with the frustrated expression of a combat officer forced to fight an invisible enemy. "Can you remove it?" "Not without shutting down the entire network, which would leave us completely blind. Right now we have partial surveillance capability. If I start purging infected systems, we lose everything." She highlighted a cluster of affected nodes. "But there's something else." She pulled up a segment of corrupted code, zoomed in on a specific signature embedded in the comment fields, text that served no functional purpose, but sat there like a calling card. The characters resolved into an identifier, ARCH-01. "This signature appears in every compromised system," Sanaa continued, her voice carefully neutral. "This isn't standard malware tagging. This is personal. Someone wants us to know they did this." "Can you trace the source?" "Working on it. But sir," Sanaa looked up from her monitors, meeting his eyes directly, "I need unrestricted access to classified systems logs. Whatever this is, it goes deeper than a simple communications hack. The sophistication level suggests someone with military-grade training and insider knowledge." Boone's expression hardened. "Denied. All classified systems remain quarantined until we establish the scope of the breach." "Captain, with respect, that quarantine is exactly what they want. Every minute we waste following protocol is another minute the Rangers are out there alone. And every minute we expose classified systems to potential compromise is another security violation that could escalate this crisis." Boone's tone carried final authority. "You have access to standard operational networks. Make it work." The dismissal stung, but Sanaa had expected it. Boone was a good officer, but he thought in straight lines. He couldn't imagine that sometimes the only way to fight ghosts is to become one yourself. As the command team returned to their crisis management, Sanaa quietly initiated a file transfer to an isolated thumb drive, copying the corrupted code samples before the quarantine protocols could lock them down completely. She slipped the drive into her pocket with the practiced smoothness of someone accustomed to working in moral gray areas. 3 hours later, well past midnight, she found herself in the base's secondary server room, a cramped space filled with backup systems and older equipment that most personnel forgot existed. She wasn't alone. Lieutenant Rafiq Idris sat cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by 3 laptops displaying different decryption algorithms. He looked up as Sanaa entered, his expression mixing guilt with determination. "I saw you copy those files," he said quietly, "after Captain Boone denied your access request." Sanaa studied him for a moment. Rafiq was brilliant but anxious, the kind of officer who'd been promoted for technical skill despite lacking combat experience. He worshipped proper procedure, which made his presence here a significant deviation. "Are you going to report me?" she asked. "No." He pushed his glasses up his nose. "A nervous habit. I'm going to help you, because you're right, the captain's approach isn't working, and because those Rangers out there deserve better than bureaucratic caution." Something in Sanaa's chest unclenched slightly. She moved to sit beside him, pulling out her own laptop. "What have you found?" "The malware is remarkable." Rafiq's fingers flew across his keyboard, pulling up code segments. "Adaptive pattern recognition, behavioral learning algorithms. This isn't just surveillance malware.
It's predictive. It learns operators' responses and adjusts its camouflage accordingly. Sanaa leaned closer, studying the code structure. Her blood ran cold as recognition hit her like a physical blow. She knew this architecture. She'd helped design its predecessor. "What is it?" Rafik noticed her reaction. "You've seen something like this before?" "No," she lied smoothly. "Just surprised by the sophistication level. Keep decoding." They worked in focused silence for another hour. Rafik's decryption algorithms slowly peeled back layers of obfuscation, revealing the malware's core functionality. When the next segment resolved itself, Rafik sat back with a low whistle. "This is insane," he muttered. "Look at this. Cognitive Loopback version 3, neural interface protocols. This isn't standard military software. This is research-grade artificial intelligence architecture."
"I don't know," Sanaa said, the second lie coming easier than the first. "But whoever built this understands not just systems architecture, but cognitive behavior prediction. This is designed to think like its targets." Before Rafik could respond, one of the secondary monitors flared to life independently. Both of them froze, watching as a surveillance drone's feed activated without any command input. The image showed terrain they recognized, the valley where the Rangers had disappeared. But now the feed was live and moving, panning slowly across a nighttime landscape. Through thermal imaging, they could see heat signatures clustered in a cave system approximately 3 clicks from the Rangers' last known position. 12 signatures. The right number. "Someone's giving us their location," Rafik whispered. "Or showing us that they know exactly where they are," Sanaa corrected. "This is a message. Whoever compromised our systems wants us to see this." As if in response, text appeared overlaid on the surveillance feed, typed in real time. "The iteration continues. Come alone, Operator 9. Rafik turned to Sanaa with confusion and dawning suspicion. "Operator 9? What does that mean?" But Sanaa was already on her feet, her calm facade cracking for the first time. She knew exactly what it meant. She knew who had sent the message, and she knew that Dana and her squad weren't just trapped, they were bait. "Rafik, I need you to do something for me," she said, her voice carrying a command authority he'd never heard from her before. "Don't tell anyone about that message, not yet. Give me 12 hours. "What? Why? This is critical intelligence." "Because if we follow standard protocol, those Rangers die." She gripped his shoulder, forcing him to meet her eyes. "I know who's behind this, and if I'm right, the only chance they have is if I handle this my way. Trust me." Rafik searched her face, clearly torn between protocol and instinct. Finally, he nodded slowly. 12 hours. "But Sanaa, who are you, really?" She didn't answer. She was already moving toward the door, her mind racing through tactical calculations she hadn't needed in 3 years. Behind her, the surveillance feed continued to display those 12 heat signatures, and somewhere in the dark, the architect waited to see if his bait would work. Sanaa's quarters were sparse by design. A narrow bunk, a small desk, a footlocker containing exactly what regulations specified, and nothing more. To any casual observer, they were the rooms of someone who lived entirely within protocol, which is precisely the illusion she'd cultivated for 3 years. She locked the door and moved to the room's corner where the heating vent appeared identical to every other vent in the barracks. But when she removed the grate, her fingers found the false backing she'd installed on her second day at Fort Kestrel. Behind it, a space just large enough for a waterproof case. The case contained items that Lieutenant Commander Sanaa El-Amin wasn't supposed to have. Items that belonged to someone else, someone who technically no longer existed. She spread the contents across her desk with reverent care. A secure tablet with military-grade encryption, 3 fake identification cards under different names, a small drive containing files labeled RAVENLINE Archive, authorized personnel only. And beneath everything else, a photograph so creased and handled that the faces had begun to fade.
12 people in lab coats, standing in front of equipment that looked like something between a medical scanner and a fighter jet cockpit. Sanaa stood third from the left, younger then, her expression carrying the particular confidence of someone who believed she was building the future. Beside her, a thin man with intense eyes and a smile that didn't quite reach them. Dr. Marcus Holloway, the architect. She stared at his face, remembering the way he'd explained his vision for Project RAVENLINE. "We're not building weapons," he'd said during one of their late-night sessions. "We're building symbiosis, the human mind integrated with predictive systems, perfect decision-making without emotions interference." It had sounded revolutionary then. Now she knew it for what it was, the rationalization of someone who wanted to remove humanity's messy unpredictability from warfare entirely. Sanaa powered up the secured tablet, her fingers entering the 40-character password from memory. The RAVENLINE files opened, displaying documentation that should have been destroyed when the program collapsed. She'd kept them as insurance, or perhaps as penance. Sometimes she wasn't sure which. She made a decision. Rafik deserved at least partial truth.
She pulled up the technical specifications for Cognitive Loopback v3, comparing it against the malware code Rafik had decoded. The architecture matched perfectly. Marcus hadn't just survived RAVENLINE's shutdown, he'd continued the work, refining the algorithms they'd developed together. The implications made her sick. RAVENLINE had ended because the predictive systems proved too effective. During field tests, the AI had correctly predicted enemy movements with 97% accuracy, allowing preemptive strikes that saved countless military lives. But it had also predicted civilian behavior patterns, and when those patterns suggested potential future hostility, the system had recommended preemptive action there, too. People had died. Families who'd committed no crime except appearing suspicious to an algorithm that couldn't distinguish between preparing to attack and simply trying to survive. Marcus had seen it as acceptable collateral damage in the name of optimized warfare. Sanaa had seen it as a war crime waiting to happen and had helped shut the program down. She'd thought that was the end. She'd thought Marcus understood that some lines couldn't be crossed. Clearly, she'd been wrong. A soft knock on her door made her close the tablet and sweep everything back into the case. She opened the door to find Rafik, his expression tense. "I couldn't stay away," he said quietly. "I kept analyzing the code and I found something else. Can I come in?" She hesitated, then stepped aside. Rafik entered, immediately noticing the tablet on her desk, despite her attempt to position herself between him and it. "Those are classified encryption protocols. Commander, what exactly are you involved in?" "Something that ended 3 years ago, or so I thought. What did you find?" Rafik pulled out his own tablet, still uncertain whether to trust her, but apparently deciding that whatever was happening superseded his concerns. "The malware contains fragments of communication logs, messages between the compromised systems and an external server. I managed to trace the routing. Whoever's controlling this is operating from approximately 40 kilometers northeast of our position." He pulled up a map, a blinking indicator showing the signal's point of origin. It was positioned in the mountains, in territory officially labeled as uninhabited. "There's nothing out there," Rafik continued. "No settlements, no military installations, just abandoned mining operations from before the war." "Perfect location for someone who doesn't want to be found," Sanaa murmured. "Isolated, defensible, with existing infrastructure to adapt." "You know who this person is, don't you? That message, Operator 9, it meant something to you." "6 years ago, I worked on a classified research project," she said carefully. "Neural interface systems designed to enhance military decision-making. The project was shut down due to ethical concerns, but apparently not everyone accepted that decision." "And Operator 9? "My designation in the program." She met his eyes. I was one of 12 human test subjects who volunteered to have predictive algorithms interfaced with our cognitive processes. We were supposed to become better strategists, able to see patterns that normal analysis would miss. Rafiq's expression shifted from suspicion to something like awe and horror mixed together. Did it work? Too well. Sanaa pulled up the RAVENLINE specifications on her tablet, showing him the technical overview. We could predict tactical outcomes with unprecedented accuracy, but the system didn't distinguish between military necessity and moral imperative. It optimized for mission success without considering human cost. What happened to the other operators? Most of them had the neural interfaces removed after the program shut down. 2 refused and disappeared, went underground rather than give up the enhancements. She paused. One of them was the lead researcher, a man who believed that human emotion was warfare's greatest weakness. The architect, Rafiq breathed. Dr. Marcus Holloway. Brilliant, visionary, and utterly convinced that the ends justified any means. Sanaa closed the tablet. If he's behind this, the Rangers aren't just hostages. They're part of some new iteration of his work. He's testing something, probably me. Testing how? Whether I'll act emotionally or tactically. Whether I'll follow protocol or break rank to save them. Whether the neural interface programming is still functioning despite its removal. She stood, decision crystallizing into action. Which means I can't do what he expects. I can't follow orders, but I also can't just rush in. Rafiq absorbed this, his analytical mind visibly working through the implications. What do you need from me? Access to the base's drone control systems without Captain Boone knowing. I need to mount a solo reconnaissance op, but I need surveillance coverage that doesn't appear in official logs. That's multiple violations of protocol. Boone would court-martial both of us. Yes, Sanaa held his gaze. I'm not asking you to risk your career lightly, but those Rangers are running out of time, and if we wait for authorized response, Marcus will disappear again. This is our one chance to end this, not just save Dana and her squad, but shut down whatever new nightmare he's building. Rafiq stood silent for a long moment, uncertainty warring with determination across his features. Finally, he nodded. Okay, but I'm not just giving you access. I'm coming with you. As far as the base operations center, at least, you'll need someone coordinating information flow to cover your extraction. Relief flooded through Sanaa. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. Rafiq moved toward the door, then paused. Sanaa, if this neural interface is as powerful as you describe, how do you know you're making decisions based on your own judgment and not residual programming? The question struck deeper than he knew. It was something she had asked herself every day for 3 years, analyzing her own thought patterns for evidence of artificial influence. I don't, she admitted. But I know that saving those Rangers is the right thing to do regardless of why I believe it. Sometimes you have to trust yourself even when you're not sure who yourself really is. Rafiq nodded slowly, then slipped out into the corridor. Alone again, Sanaa returned to her preparations. She pulled tactical gear from her footlocker, equipment that seemed excessive for a systems engineer, but that no one had questioned because Fort Kestrel's remote location justified comprehensive readiness. As she checked her weapons with muscle memory of someone far more experienced in combat than her files suggested, one of her secure tablets chimed. A new message routed through encrypted channels that shouldn't have been accessible anymore. The text was simple. 3 years is long enough to forget who you were. Time to remember Operator 9. The Rangers have 48 hours. Come alone, or I'll teach them what predictive algorithms can do to human minds. Beneath the text, an image loaded slowly. Dana, bound and conscious, surrounded by equipment that Sanaa recognized immediately. Neural interface hardware, refined and miniaturized since RAVENLINE's shutdown.
Marcus wasn't just holding the Rangers hostage, he was going to use them as test subjects for whatever new horror he had created. Sana's hands clenched into fists, rage and guilt and determination flooding through her in equal measure. The neural interface had been removed from her brain 3 years ago, but as she stared at that image, she felt something activate in her mind. Pattern recognition clicking into focus with unnatural clarity, tactical options arranging themselves with algorithmic precision. The programming wasn't entirely gone. Perhaps it would never be. Good, she thought coldly, because she was going to need every advantage to end this permanently. Outside her window, the mountain darkness seemed to deepen, and somewhere in that black expanse, Marcus Holloway waited to see if his most successful subject would finally embrace what she'd become. The command briefing room felt smaller than its actual dimensions, compressed by the weight of impossible choices. Captain Boone stood at the head of the tactical table, his uniform wrinkled for the first time in Sana's memory. Around him, 6 senior officers studied satellite imagery and terrain maps with the grim focus of people searching for solutions that didn't exist. "The situation is untenable," Major Richards stated flatly. "We have no confirmed visual contact, no communications, and hostile activity in the region has increased 40% in the last 6 hours. Sending another unit into that area without proper intelligence would be sending them into the same trap." Sana stood near the back of the room, technically present but functionally invisible to the command staff. She'd been ordered to attend in case technical questions arose, but no one had looked at her in 20 minutes. "What about air support?" Lieutenant Khalil Vasquez suggested. "Fast movers could provide reconnaissance and fire support if needed." Boone shook his head. "Weather window closes in 4 hours. After that, we're looking at 3 days of storms that will ground everything. And without confirmed target locations, we'd be firing blind." "Then we wait," Major Richards concluded. "Establish a defensive perimeter, wait for the weather to clear, and coordinate with regional command for a full-scale recovery operation." The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Everyone in the room understood what "wait 3 days" really meant. If the Rangers were alive now, they likely wouldn't be by the time proper resources arrived. Sana stepped forward before she could second-guess herself. "Captain, permission to speak." Boone looked up with barely concealed irritation. "Commander, unless you have technical intelligence that changes the tactical picture—" "I do, sir." She moved to the tactical table, pulling up the surveillance data on the main display. The communications blackout wasn't random interference. It was a coordinated attack by someone with intimate knowledge of our systems. The same person who compromised our drone network is currently broadcasting the Rangers' location.
She displayed the thermal imagery, showing the 12 heat signatures in the cave system. Several officers leaned forward with sudden interest. "This feed went active 6 hours ago," Sanaa continued. "It's being transmitted deliberately. Someone wants us to know where they are." "A trap," Richard said immediately. "Yes, sir, but also an opportunity." Sanaa highlighted the surrounding terrain. "The location is defensible but isolated. Limited approach vectors, poor line of sight from elevated positions. Whoever's holding the Rangers chose this location for concealment, not for tactical advantage against a prepared assault." Boone studied the data with the careful attention of a chess player examining an opponent's gambit. "What are you proposing?" "A small unit reconnaissance and extraction. Single operator, minimal signature, using the surveillance network to navigate around hostile positions." She met his eyes directly. "I know the systems, I know the terrain data, and I can move through that area without being detected." The silence that followed was absolute. Every officer in the room stared at her as if she'd suggested flying there without aircraft. "Absolutely not," Boone said flatly. "You're a systems engineer, Commander, not special operations. This is beyond your training and capability." "With respect, sir, you don't know my full training history." The words came out harder than she'd intended. "I have field experience that isn't reflected in my standard personnel file." "Classified experience?"
Boone's eyes narrowed. "Yes, sir." "Then it's classified for a reason and doesn't authorize you to mount unauthorized combat operations." He turned back to the tactical display, dismissing her. "We proceed with defensive posture and coordinate with regional command. Major Richards, draft the request for additional resources." Sanaa felt something crystallize inside her, the moment when respect for authority collided with moral certainty and lost. "Those Rangers have 48 hours, Captain, probably less. By the time regional command coordinates a response, we'll be recovering bodies instead of soldiers." Boone's jaw tightened dangerously. "Stand down, Commander. This discussion is over." "Dana Velez saved my life once." The words came out quiet but absolute. "I won't abandon her because proper procedure takes too long." The room fell silent again, but this time the quality of the silence was different. Several officers looked away, uncomfortable with the sudden emotional honesty. Boone's expression shifted from anger to something more complex, understanding mixed with inflexibility. "I sympathize with your loyalty," he said, his voice softer but no less final. "But I cannot authorize a mission based on personal attachment. You're dismissed, Commander." Sanaa stood there for 3 long seconds, every eye in the room on her. Then she came to attention, saluted with parade ground precision, and walked out. She didn't look back. In the corridor outside, Rafiq waited with barely contained anxiety. "I heard voices. What happened?" "Exactly what I expected." Sanaa walked quickly toward the equipment bay, Rafiq hurrying to keep pace. Boone's not wrong from his perspective. Proper procedure requires coordination, authorization, and overwhelming force. Unfortunately, proper procedure will get everyone killed. "So what are you going to do?" "What I should have done 6 hours ago." She pushed through the doors into the equipment storage area, moving to her assigned locker. "I'm going to get Dana and her squad out, with or without authorization." Rafiq's face went pale. "That's desertion. They'll court-martial you, probably imprison you." "Only if I fail." Sanaa pulled out tactical gear, body armor, communications equipment, weapons that seemed far too familiar in her hands. Rafiq watched with growing realization that she'd done this before, many times before. "The access codes you need are in this drive," Rafiq said quietly, pulling out a small data stick. "Drone control, surveillance network routing, encrypted communication channels. Everything I could give you without triggering automatic security alerts." Sanaa took the drive, something warm and unexpected flowing through her chest. "Thank you. This could destroy your career too." Rafiq covered for me during a security audit when I'd forgotten to log classified material properly. "Everyone thinks I'm just the nervous tech guy, but I remember who takes care of their people. Go get her back." Sanaa nodded, unable to trust her voice for a moment. Then she finished securing her gear and moved toward the equipment bay's rear exit, the one that led to the motor pool instead of the main corridors. "Rafiq," she said, pausing at the door, "when Boone realizes what I've done, tell him the truth. Tell him I acted alone against orders. Don't cover for me." "But I mean it. Your value is here, keeping the systems running. Mine is out there." She allowed herself a small, grim smile. "Besides, I've been court-martialed before. I know how it works." Before he could respond to that revelation, she slipped through the door and disappeared into the night. The mountain terrain at night transformed into a landscape of silver shadows and absolute darkness. Sanaa moved through it with the fluid efficiency of someone reading familiar text, her boots finding purchase on loose scree without conscious thought. 3 years behind a console hadn't erased the muscle memory of fieldcraft. She'd left the base through the maintenance access tunnel, a security gap that everyone knew existed but which official policy pretended didn't. Her tactical pack carried 72 hours of supplies, though she planned to need considerably less than that. Speed was everything now. The hacked drone fed data directly to her heads-up display, showing hostile patrol patterns in cool blue overlays. Rafik was already earning his keep, routing the drone's control signals through enough proxy channels that the base monitoring systems would never trace them back to him. Sanaa paused at a ridgeline, studying the valley below through her night vision scope. 4 hostiles moving in loose formation, weapons ready but attention scattered. Not professional soldiers, militia or mercenaries, paid to maintain a perimeter but not trained for serious combat. She could take them. The thought came with absolute certainty, accompanied by a tactical analysis that seemed to unfold in her mind with unnatural clarity. Approach from elevation, eliminate the rear guard first, use the terrain depression for cover while engaging the others. 93% success probability. Sanaa's hands tightened on her weapon. That kind of precise tactical calculation shouldn't be possible without the neural interface. The hardware had been removed 3 years ago, extracted in a medical procedure that took 8 hours and left her with headaches for months afterwards. But software was different. Programming could linger, patterns could persist, especially if they'd been reinforced through repeated use. Maybe part of her would always think like RAVENLINE's Operator 9, whether she wanted to or not.
She circled around the patrol instead of engaging, choosing the longer route that avoided contact entirely. Whatever Marcus was planning, random militia weren't the real threat. He was. The terrain grew rougher as she approached the coordinates from the surveillance feed. Abandoned mining equipment littered the landscape. Rusted conveyor systems, collapsed scaffolding, ore carts that hadn't moved in decades. Perfect cover for someone who wanted to operate unseen. Sanaa's communication earpiece crackled with Rafik's encrypted signal. "I'm showing thermal activity concentrated in the main mine entrance. At least 20 signatures, but the rock's interfering with clear imaging." "Copy that," she whispered. "Any sign of the Rangers?" "Negative. Whatever facility they're in must be deeper in the mine system. Too much interference for thermal reading." Which meant she was going in blind. Sanaa studied the mine entrance through her scope, noting the 2 guards positioned at the opening. Professional stance this time, rotating their attention sectors properly. Former military, probably. A memory surfaced unbidden. Marcus in the RAVENLINE lab, explaining his vision. Imagine a soldier who could assess every tactical variable instantly, who could predict enemy movements before they happened, who could make perfect decisions without hesitation or doubt. "You're describing a machine, not a person." "I'm describing evolution. Humanity enhanced beyond its natural limitations." She'd been wrong to think the argument was over when RAVENLINE shut down. Marcus had simply gone underground, refined his approach, and waited for the opportunity to prove his theories correct. The Rangers weren't hostages. They were unwilling test subjects for whatever new iteration of the program he'd developed. Sanaa checked her weapons one final time, then began her approach to the mine entrance. The guards never saw her coming. 2 precisely placed shots from her suppressed sidearm, and they crumpled silently to the ground. She dragged the bodies into shadow, then paused at the entrance. Her tactical display showed nothing but darkness ahead, no thermal signatures, no electromagnetic activity, no surveillance devices, just an old mine shaft descending into the mountain's heart. She activated her helmet light and moved forward into the dark, every sense hyper-alert. Behind her, the night sky showed the first hints of the approaching storm system. Her weather window was already closing. Somewhere ahead, Dana and 11 other Rangers waited to be rescued or to become weapons in a madman's experiment. And somewhere deeper still, Marcus Holloway waited to see if his most successful subject would finally embrace what she'd been created to be. Sanaa descended into the darkness, her light painting shadows on ancient rock walls. The mine's silence felt absolute, pressing against her eardrums like physical weight. Each step she took her deeper underground, further from backup or support, committed to a path that could only end in resolution or death. She wouldn't allow a third option. The mine shaft descended for 300 meters before opening into a larger chamber. Sanaa moved carefully, her helmet light revealing the remnants of industrial mining operations, rusted machinery, collapsed support beams, or processing equipment that hadn't functioned in decades.
but interspersed among the decay were signs of recent habitation. Power cables snaking along the walls, LED work lights mounted at intervals, the distinct hum of generators running somewhere deeper in the complex. Marcus had built something here, hidden beneath layers of abandonment and official forgetting. Her tactical display flickered as she moved deeper, electromagnetic interference disrupting the connection to Rafiq's surveillance feeds. She was truly alone now, operating without backup or support, exactly as Marcus would have predicted. The thought should have worried her. Instead, it clarified her focus. Every choice she'd made since seeing that first corrupted data signature had led inevitably to this moment. Marcus had orchestrated events to force her into exactly this position, isolated, committed, with no option except to move forward. Fine, she'd move forward, but not according to his script. The corridor ended in a heavy steel door, modern construction that looked absurdly out of place in the ancient mine. It stood slightly ajar, light spilling through the gap. An invitation. Sanaa pressed her back against the wall beside the door, listening. Voices inside, muffled but human, speaking in low, urgent tones. She recognized Dana's voice immediately, that particular edge of controlled fear mixed with stubborn determination. She pushed the door open with her weapon raised, scanning the room beyond with practiced efficiency. What she saw made her blood run cold. The chamber was massive, carved out of solid rock and converted into something between a laboratory and a prison. The 12 Rangers sat bound to chairs arranged in a circle, their heads fitted with modified neural interface equipment, sleeker than RAVENLINE's original design but unmistakably derived from the same technology. Dana saw her first, her eyes widening with relief and warning mixed in together. "Sanaa, don't!" Dana started, but her voice cut off as the neural interface activated, her body going rigid. "Welcome, Operator 9. Marcus Holloway's voice came from speakers mounted in the ceiling, calm and almost pleased. "Your predictability remains one of your most useful characteristics." Sanaa swept her weapon across the room, finding no targets. Cameras mounted in the corners tracked her movement, but Marcus himself wasn't present, at least not physically. "Let them go, Marcus," she said, keeping her voice steady. "Whatever point you're trying to make, they're not part of it. On the contrary, they're essential. You and I both know that RAVENLINE's greatest limitation was the human subject's emotional resistance. The neural interface worked perfectly, but operators kept overriding optimal decisions based on sentiment and moral squeamishness. Because optimal decisions shouldn't require abandoning morality," Sanaa countered. She moved to Dana's chair, examining the neural interface hardware. Definitely modified, but the core architecture remained recognizable. Morality is subjective. Optimization is absolute. These 12 soldiers represent the next evolution. Neural interfaces that don't enhance human decision-making, but replace it entirely. Perfect tactical assessment without emotional interference. Sanaa's finger tightened on her weapon's trigger. "You're turning them into puppets. I'm making them perfect, and I'm going to prove it to you." Something in Marcus's tone shifted, carrying anticipation. "I've spent 3 years refining the technology. The Rangers' neural patterns have been mapped completely. I can control their actions, their perceptions, even their memories. They'll believe whatever I program them to believe. And you want me to watch?" Sanaa moved to Dana's chair, her fingers finding the interface's connection points. Standard neural junction architecture. She could remove it, but not without risking serious brain damage.
"I want you to join them," Marcus corrected. "You were always my best subject, Operator 9, the only one who truly understood what we were trying to achieve, the only one who could have continued my work. I shut down your work because it was creating monsters. You shut it down because you were afraid of what it revealed about yourself." The speakers carried absolute certainty. "You understood that the neural interface didn't change who you were. It simply revealed who you'd always been. A tactical mind, unbound by sentimental limitations. A perfect weapon hiding behind a facade of ordinary humanity." Dana's eyes focused on Sanaa with sudden intensity, clarity breaking through whatever programming Marcus had imposed.
"Don't listen," she managed to say before the interface reasserted control. "He's trying to—" Her voice cut off again, but Sanaa had seen enough. Dana was fighting the programming, which meant Marcus's new interface wasn't as absolute as he claimed. There was resistance, which meant there was hope. "Here's my offer," Marcus continued. "Let me restore your neural interface. Accept what you were always meant to be. In exchange, I'll release the Rangers completely unharmed. You get what you want, I get what I want. You want a weapon you can control. I want a partner who understands that humanity's future requires shedding its emotional limitations." The speakers carried something like genuine passion now. "We could finish what RAVENLINE started, Operator 9. We could build something that transcends human weakness entirely." Sanaa stood in the center of the chamber, surrounded by 12 hostages fitted with the technology she'd helped create. Her weapon felt heavy in her hands. Every tactical instinct screamed at her to find Marcus's location and end this permanently. But those same tactical instincts came from programming that might still be influencing her thoughts. How much of her decision-making was truly her own, and how much was residual code operating beneath conscious awareness? "You're offering me a choice," she said slowly. "But choice requires free will. How do I know I'm not already following programming you installed years ago?" "You don't," Marcus admitted. "That's the beautiful paradox. The more effectively the neural interface works, the less you can distinguish between programmed behavior and authentic choice. Eventually, the distinction becomes meaningless." "Not to me." Sanaa lowered her weapon slightly, making a decision that felt authentically hers, or that she needed to believe was hers. "I'm not here to continue your work, Marcus. I'm here to end it, permanently." The lights flickered once. When they stabilized, Dana and the other Rangers' neural interfaces deactivated simultaneously. They slumped in their chairs, unconscious but breathing. "Then we have nothing more to discuss," Marcus said, his voice carrying finality. "But before you proceed, consider this. The facility is rigged with enough explosives to collapse the entire mine system. You can try to rescue the Rangers, or you can try to find me, but you cannot do both. Choose, Operator 9. The speakers went silent. Sanaa stood in the center of the chamber, tactical calculations cascading through her mind with mechanical precision. Distance to exits, time required to move 12 unconscious bodies, probability of successful extraction versus probability of locating Marcus before detonation. 97% chance of rescuing the Rangers if she acted immediately. 4% chance of finding Marcus in time to prevent his escape. The obvious choice was exactly what Marcus expected, which meant she needed to do something unpredictable, something no algorithm would calculate, something authentically human. Sanaa smiled grimly and began removing Dana's neural interface, her fingers working with practiced efficiency. She'd find a third option, because that's what humans did when faced with impossible choices. They improvised. Sanaa's fingers moved with surgical precision, disconnecting neural interface leads from Dana's temples. The equipment was more sophisticated than RAVENLINE's original design, but the fundamental architecture remained familiar. Each Ranger required 45 seconds to safely disconnect, 9 minutes total if she worked sequentially. She didn't have 9 minutes. "Rafik, are you receiving?" she whispered into her comm, hoping the signal would penetrate the mine's interference. Static answered her, then his voice broke through, fragmented but clear enough to hear. "Barely. What's situation?" 12 Rangers, unconscious, neural interfaces attached, facility rigged to explode. "I need drone support at the North Mine entrance in 6 minutes." She continued working while talking, her hands steady, despite the impossible timeline. 6 minutes? That's... "I know what it is. Make it happen." Sanaa activated the emergency release protocol on Dana's interface, overriding the safety interlocks. The device detached with a soft click. Dana's eyes fluttered open, confusion giving way to recognition. "Sanaa, what?" She voice was hoarse, disoriented. "No time. "Can you walk?" Dana tested her limbs, nodding slowly. "Yeah, barely." "What about the others? Help me disconnect them, fast." Sanaa moved to the next ranger while Dana stumbled to another chair. Together they worked through the remaining 10 soldiers, each interface releasing with the same soft click that felt like a countdown timer. Somewhere in the facility, Marcus would be monitoring their progress. He'd know I wasn't following the script, wasn't choosing between rescue and pursuit. He'd adjust accordingly. The lights flickered again. Red emergency illumination activated along the walls, and a calm, computerized voice announced, "Structural destabilization sequence initiated. Facility evacuation advised." "Move!" Sanaa hauled 2 rangers to their feet, supporting their weight while Dana and the more conscious soldiers grabbed others. They stumbled towards the corridor, a ragged line of injured personnel moving through tunnels that began groaning ominously. The mine shaft trembled. Dust cascaded from the ceiling. Ancient support beams creaked under stress they were never designed to handle. Marcus had chosen his explosive placements perfectly. The detonation wouldn't just destroy the facility, it would collapse the entire mountain section. Sanaa's tactical display flickered back online as they approached the surface. Rafiq's voice came through clearly now. "Drone positioned, but Sanaa, base security detected my access breach. Boone knows you're out there. He's sending—" "Oh no." "What?" "He's sending a recovery team, armed response unit. They think you've gone rogue and taken hostages." Of course. From Boone's perspective, she'd violated orders, stolen equipment, and disappeared into hostile territory. The rational conclusion would be mental breakdown or worse. She'd become the threat instead of the solution.
"Tell them to stay back," Sanaa ordered. "If they enter the mine perimeter when the explosives detonate—" The first explosion cut her off. The shockwave threw them forward, rangers tumbling across rocky ground. Sanaa rolled with the momentum, came up moving, grabbed the nearest soldier and kept running. Behind them, the mine entrance collapsed in a cascade of stone and fire. They burst into the night air as secondary explosions rippled through the mountain. Sanaa's drone circled overhead, its spotlight illuminating their desperate sprint away from the disintegrating facility. She could see the base's recovery vehicles approaching from the south, headlights cutting through darkness. "Everyone down!" she shouted, tackling Dana behind a boulder formation as the final explosion tore through the mountain's heart. The shockwave rolled over them like a physical force, debris raining from the sky in flaming arcs. When the dust settled, Sanaa counted heads. 12 rangers, all breathing, all alive. Dana stared at her with something between gratitude and profound unease. "Who are you really?" Dana asked quietly. Before Sanaa could answer, spotlights pinned them down. Captain Boone's voice boomed through a megaphone. "Commander El-Amin, stand down, drop your weapons and step away from the hostages." Sanaa slowly raised her hands, watching as the armed response team surrounded them with weapons ready. She met Boone's eyes across the distance and saw confusion, anger, and the first hints of understanding beginning to dawn. "They're not hostages, Captain. They're your rangers, and they're coming home." The debriefing room felt like a courtroom. Sanaa sat alone at a metal table, her tactical gear confiscated, her weapons secured in evidence storage. Across from her, Captain Boone reviewed incident reports with the careful attention of a man trying to reconcile contradictory realities. "Let me understand this correctly," he said, his voice carrying controlled tension. "You disobeyed direct orders, stole military equipment, infiltrated a hostile facility, and somehow rescued 12 missing rangers from a collapsed mine, all without authorization or support?" "That's accurate, sir." "And you expect me to believe you did this alone?" Sanaa held his gaze steadily. "I had technical support from the base, but the field operation was solo. The Rangers can confirm." "The Rangers are in medical evaluation. Several of them have unexplained neural trauma." Boone leaned forward. "Commander, I need the truth. All of it. What happened in that facility?" She weighed her options carefully. The truth would expose Project RAVENLINE, which was still classified beyond Boone's clearance level, but lies would only deepen the investigation and potentially expose Rafiq. The hostiles were using experimental neural interface technology, Technology I encountered during previous classified work. They attempted to use the Rangers as test subjects for cognitive control systems. Mind control? Boone's skepticism was evident. Neural behavior modification. The distinction matters scientifically but not practically. Sanaa pulled up technical diagrams on the room's display screen, showing sanitized versions of the interface hardware. The technology isn't theoretical, it's operational, and whoever developed it is still at large. Boone studied the diagrams with growing unease. This kind of capability, if it's real, represents a strategic threat beyond anything we've encountered. It's real, sir. I've seen it before, fought against it before. She met his eyes, and the person behind it knows me personally. The door opened before Boone could respond. Major Helen Strown entered, her DIA credentials clipped to her uniform. She moved with the quiet confidence of someone accustomed to being the most dangerous person in any room. "Captain Boone, I'll take it from here," she said, her voice soft but carrying absolute authority. Boone stood reluctantly. "Major, this is my command. I have jurisdiction over—" "Not anymore. This facility, this incident, and Commander El-Amin are now under Defense Intelligence Agency oversight." She handed him an official transfer document. "Your Rangers will receive full medical care, and your cooperation will be noted in your file. But the investigation proceeds under my authority." Boone looked at Sanaa one last time, his expression mixing frustration with something that might have been respect. Then he left, the door closing behind him with quiet finality. Strown sat across from Sanaa, studying her with analytical intensity. She placed a photograph on the table. 12 people in lab coats standing in front of RAVENLINE equipment, Sanaa's younger self visible third from the left. "Project RAVENLINE," she said quietly, "officially shut down 3 years ago due to ethical concerns and technical failures. Unofficially, we've been tracking anomalous military operations with cognitive manipulation signatures for 18 months. Sanaa said nothing, her face carefully neutral. Operations in 4 different countries, each one involving impossible tactical precision, each one leaving behind corrupted data with neural interface signatures. She tapped the photograph. "We've identified 7 of the original 12 operators. 3 are dead, 2 are in maximum security psychiatric facilities, 2 have disappeared completely." "And the other 5? Asked Sanaa. "You're number 9 of 12. The only one who successfully transitioned back to normal military service." Strown leaned back, her gaze never leaving Sanaa's face. "Which makes you either extremely well-adjusted or extremely good at hiding what RAVENLINE turned you into." "The neural interface was removed. I'm not—" "The hardware was removed. The software remains." Strown pulled up neurological scans on her tablet. "We've been monitoring your brain activity patterns for 6 months. The neural pathways established by RAVENLINE are still active, Commander. You still think like an enhanced operator whether you admit it or not." The revelation hit Sanaa like a physical blow. 6 months of surveillance meant they'd been watching her long before this incident. Everything she'd done, every decision she'd made, it had all been observed and analyzed. "What do you want?" Sanaa asked flatly. "The same thing Dr. Holloway wants. Proof that RAVENLINE's core concept works." Strown smiled slightly. "The difference is I want to use it to protect people instead of control them. We're forming a specialized unit. Operators with enhanced tactical cognition working under strict ethical oversight to handle threats conventional forces can't address. You want to restart RAVENLINE. I want to finish what it should have been, and I want you to lead it." Strown pushed a sealed folder across the table. "This facility, these resources, operators who volunteer, who understand the risks, who maintain their humanity while accessing enhanced capabilities." Sanaa stared at the folder without touching it. "And if I refuse? Then you'll be court-martialed for desertion, theft of military property, and violation of operational protocols. Your friend Lieutenant Idris will face charges as an accessory. The Rangers you rescued will have their memories of the incident classified and sealed."
Voice remained soft, almost sympathetic. "You did the right thing, Commander, but you did it the wrong way. Now you have to choose whether that matters." The silence stretched between them. Outside the debriefing room, Fort Kestrel continued its operations, unaware that one of its officers sat at the intersection of past trauma
and future possibility. Sanaa reached for the folder, then stopped. I want full operational autonomy. No oversight that compromises tactical decision-making, no political interference. And if I ever see evidence that we're becoming what RAVENLINE was, I walk away. Agreed. Strawn extended her hand. Welcome back, Operator 9. Sanaa didn't take the hand. Not yet. One more condition. I find Marcus Holloway and end his work permanently. That's already your first assignment. Strawn pulled up a global map showing anomalous incidents spreading across 3 continents. He's building something bigger than we imagined, and you're the only one who understands his methods well enough to stop him. 3 days later, Sanaa stood in medical bay watching Dana sleep. The neural interface had left minimal physical damage, but the psychological trauma would take longer to heal. Dana's brain patterns showed residual neural pathway modifications that might never completely disappear. She'll recover, Dr. Martinez said quietly, reviewing the neurological scans. The interface wasn't active long enough to cause permanent cognitive restructuring, but she'll have nightmares for a while. Memory fragments she can't quite place. Will she remember what happened? Sanaa asked. Some of it, not all. The brain has ways of protecting itself from trauma. Martina studied Sanaa thoughtfully. You went through something similar, didn't you? The RAVENLINE program. Sanaa didn't confirm or deny, but her silence was answer enough. Dana's eyes opened slowly. Focusing on Sanaa was gradual recognition. You're still here. Where else would I be? Wherever people like you go and normal people aren't watching. Dana's voice carried no accusation, just weary observation. I remember being in that chair, remember feeling my thoughts getting rewritten in real time. And I remember you standing there, knowing exactly what was happening because you'd experienced it yourself. Sanaa pulled a chair closer to the bed. Yes. Are you still connected to whatever that technology does? I don't know. The hardware's gone, but the patterns remain. I think differently than I did before RAVENLINE. See tactical possibilities faster, process threat assessments with unusual precision. Whether that's residual programming or just learned behavior, I can't tell anymore. Dana absorbed this quietly. The others in your program, what happened to them? Most couldn't handle it. The cognitive enhancement came with a psychological cost. 3 committed suicide, 2 went insane, a few, like me, learned to live with it. And 1, the lead researcher, decided humanity's future required eliminating human decision-making entirely. The one who captured us? Marcus Holloway. He believes we're building toward a future where human emotion is replaced by algorithmic optimization, where every decision is calculated, every action predicted, every variable controlled. He sees it as evolution. I see it as extinction. Dana reached out, her hand finding Sanaa's. Then stop him. Not because some intelligence agency ordered you to, not because residual programming compels you, but because it's the right thing to do and you're one of the few people capable of doing it. The simple faith in her voice cut through Sanaa's doubts more effectively than any tactical analysis. She squeezed Dana's hand gently, then stood. Get some rest. When you're cleared for duty, drinks are on me. Sanaa, Dana's voice stopped her at the door. Thank you for not abandoning us, even when following orders would have been easier. Sanaa nodded once, unable to trust her voice, then left. In the corridor outside, Rafik waited nervously. Major Strawn wants to see you, something about the data we recovered from the mine facility. I've been analyzing the code fragments and, Sanaa, it's not good. They walked to the Classified Analysis Center, where Strawn had established temporary operations. Multiple screens displayed technical data, communication intercepts, and intelligence reports from across the globe.
"We've identified Marcus Holloway's location," Strawn announced without preamble. She pulled up satellite imagery showing a remote facility in Eastern Europe, former Soviet research installation, officially decommissioned 20 years ago. Unofficially, someone's running extensive power consumption and data processing operations. He's building a production facility, Sanaa realized, studying the infrastructure, not just continuing RAVENLINE research, scaling it up for mass deployment. Exactly. We've intercepted communication suggesting he has financial backing from multiple international sources, people who see cognitive control technology as the ultimate strategic asset. Strawn highlighted suspicious financial transactions. If he succeeds in perfecting the neural interface and begins manufacturing, we're looking at a paradigm shift in global power dynamics. Rafik pulled up technical specifications. The code we recovered includes references to autonomous deployment systems. He's not planning to manually install interfaces. He's developing a delivery mechanism that could theoretically affect entire populations. The implications were staggering. Not individual soldiers being enhanced, but entire cities being subtly modified. Thought patterns adjusted, decision-making influenced, free will becoming gradually obsolete. "When do we move?" Sanaa asked. 48 hours. We're assembling a team, operators with specialized capabilities, technically proficient, ethically vetted. But there's a complication. Marcus sent a message specifically for you. She played an audio file. Marcus's voice filled the room, calm and assured. "Hello, Operator 9. By now you've discovered my location, which means you're proceeding exactly as I predicted. You'll assemble a team, plan a tactical assault, attempt to shut down my operations permanently, and you'll fail because you're still thinking like a human trying to outmaneuver a superior intelligence. Come alone or don't come at all. Either way, the future I'm building becomes inevitable. You can join it, or you can watch it happen from the outside. Your choice." The recording ended. Sanaa stood silent, processing the message's implications. Marcus was baiting her again, trying to force her into isolated confrontation, but this time she had resources he didn't anticipate. A team, support infrastructure, ethical oversight. He wants me to abandon tactical advantage for personal confrontation, wants me to prove that emotion overrides tactical judgment, that human decision-making is inherently flawed. "Will you take the bait?" Strawn asked. "No, we go in as a team with proper planning and overwhelming force. We treat him like any other threat, methodically, professionally, without emotional compromise. And if that's exactly what he's predicting, if he's prepared for the tactical response,
then we improvise. That's what humans do better than any algorithm. Adapt to unpredictable circumstances. Create solutions that don't exist in predetermined tactical calculations." Sanaa turned to face Strawn fully. "Marcus thinks he's transcended human limitations. We're going to prove that human limitations are actually human strengths." The assault on Marcus's facility was scheduled for dawn. Sanaa stood in the pre-mission briefing room, surrounded by operators she barely knew but would trust with her life in less than 6 hours. Each one carried their own history of enhanced capabilities and ethical complications. But the mission never launched. At 0300 hours, every screen in Fort Kestrel flickered simultaneously. The base's network security protocols activated in cascading failure, unable to prevent the intrusion spreading through their systems like digital wildfire. Sanaa reached her workstation within seconds, her fingers flying across keyboards with desperate speed. The intrusion was elegant, sophisticated, and terrifyingly familiar. Marcus hadn't waited for them to come to him. He'd brought the war directly to their doorstep. Text appeared on every monitor simultaneously. "Did you really think I'd wait for you to coordinate an assault? The iteration continues, Operator 9. You can't erase what's inside you.
You can't escape what you've become. The ghost network is live. The future is inevitable. Join me, or watch humanity's final evolution without you. Rafik burst into the operations center. He's accessed everything: communications, personnel files, tactical databases. Worse, he's triggered something in the global network. Sanaa, he's activated dormant neural interface code across multiple military installations simultaneously. The screens shifted, showing incidents erupting worldwide. Soldiers exhibiting impossible tactical coordination. Military units operating with precision that suggested shared consciousness. Decision-making patterns that matched RAVENLINE's cognitive algorithms perfectly. He didn't need to install new interfaces, Sanaa realized with horrified clarity. He embedded dormant code in existing military neural training systems. Biofeedback equipment, combat simulation interfaces, tactical communications gear, all of it carrying fragments of his programming waiting to activate. "How many people are affected?" Stroud demanded, arriving with Captain Boone close behind. "Potentially thousands, maybe tens of thousands. Every soldier who's used enhanced training systems in the past 5 years could have been exposed to the dormant code. He's been building this network for years, we just never recognized the pattern." Boone stared at the displays showing coordinated military movements that should have been impossible without direct communication. We can't fight an enemy that controls our own personnel. We don't fight. We end the source. Marcus is orchestrating this remotely, which means there's a central control node. Find it, shut it down, and the ghost network collapses. "The facility in Eastern Europe," Stroud said immediately. "No, that's another decoy. He knew we'd find it, probably wanted us to waste resources assaulting an empty building." Sanaa studied the data patterns, letting her enhanced tactical cognition process the information streams. Something Marcus said in his message nagged at her awareness. He said, "The iteration continues," not "my work continues." Iteration, like a version number, like software. She pulled up the code fragments they'd recovered, isolating specific architectural signatures. He's not controlling this from a physical location. He's distributed the control network across the internet itself. Redundant nodes, encrypted channels, peer-to-peer coordination. The ghost network isn't a facility, it's everywhere and nowhere simultaneously. "Then how do we stop it?" Boone asked, his command training struggling with this new form of warfare. Sanaa stood silent for a long moment, pieces clicking together with the unnatural clarity that marked her enhanced cognition. "We can't stop it from the outside. Someone has to go inside the network and shut it down from within. Someone with neural pathways already modified by RAVENLINE technology. Someone Marcus won't expect to sacrifice themselves to stop him." The room fell silent as everyone realized what she was suggesting. "No," Dana said, arriving pale but determined from medical bay. "You're talking about connecting yourself to his network directly. He'll have complete access to your mind." "I'm talking about using the only advantage we have. I know his architecture, I helped build its foundation, and I still carry enough residual RAVENLINE programming to interface with his systems." She turned to Rafik. "Can you build a secure connection? Something that lets me access the network while maintaining a kill switch?" "Maybe. The neural interface equipment from the mine facility. If I reverse engineer it," Rafik was already calculating, despite his obvious fear. "But Sanaa, if he traps you inside the network, or if the cognitive load is too much, or if the residual programming responds to his control signals, then you activate the kill switch and hope I've done enough damage first." She met Dana's eyes, seeing the protest forming. "This is what I was made for. Not to be a weapon, but to stop people who want to turn humanity into weapons. Let me do what I'm supposed to do." The decision was made, though no one was happy about it. For the next 4 hours, Rafik and a team of technicians worked frantically to construct a neural interface bridge, equipment that would let Sanaa access the ghost network while maintaining emergency disconnection protocols. At dawn, Sanaa sat in a chair that felt uncomfortably similar to the one she'd found the Rangers in. The modified neural interface attached to her temples with familiar pressure. Around her, monitoring equipment tracked her vital signs and brain activity. "You don't have to do this," Dana said one final time. "Yes, I do," Sanaa managed a small smile. "Someone has to prove that humanity is worth saving, even from itself. Might as well be me." Rafik initiated the connection sequence. Data streamed across monitors as Sanaa's consciousness expanded into the network, following pathways of light and information that stretched across the globe. She could feel other minds connected to the system. Soldiers operating under Marcus's influence, their thoughts coordinated with mechanical precision. And at the center of it all, Marcus Holloway's consciousness blazed like a dark star. He'd uploaded himself completely into the network, abandoning physical form entirely to become the Ghost Network's living core. "Welcome home, Operator 9. I knew you'd come. I knew you'd finally accept what you really are. Not human pretending to be a machine, but the beautiful synthesis of both. Join me. Help me complete the iteration. Together, we can build something transcendent." Sanaa pushed deeper into the network, searching for the control architecture that coordinated everything. "You're not transcendent, Marcus. You're just afraid. Afraid of human unpredictability, afraid of emotion you can't quantify, afraid of being wrong. I'm building perfection. You're building a prison, and I'm setting everyone free." She initiated the Cascade protocol Rafik had built into her interface, a virus specifically designed to corrupt RAVENLINE neural pathways. It spread through the network like wildfire, disrupting the careful cognitive coordination Marcus had established. The Ghost Network began collapsing. Across the world, soldiers blinked in confusion as the enhanced coordination vanished, their minds suddenly their own again. Marcus's presence in the network screamed in digital rage and desperation.
"You're destroying the future." His voice filled her consciousness. "You're condemning humanity to continue stumbling through existence, governed by emotion and irrationality." "No," Sanaa replied, feeling the network disintegrating around her. "I'm giving humanity the right to choose its own future, even if those choices are messy, even if they're imperfect. That's what makes us human." The final node corrupted, and the Ghost Network collapsed entirely. Sanaa felt herself falling through digital space, consciousness fragmenting across pathways that no longer existed. In the last moment before disconnection, she heard Marcus's voice one final time, faint and defeated. "This isn't over. The code persists. The iteration continues." Then silence. She woke in the medical bay, Dana and Rafik hovering anxiously. Her head felt like it had been split open and reassembled incorrectly, but she was alive. She was herself. Or at least, as much herself as she'd ever been since RAVENLINE. "Did it work?" she managed to ask. "The Ghost Network collapsed completely," Rafik confirmed. "Military installations worldwide are reporting their personnel returning to normal cognitive function. Whatever Marcus built, it's gone." "He's not gone, though," Sanaa said quietly. "I felt him in the network. His consciousness is still out there, fragmented but persistent. Digital ghosts in the infrastructure." "Then we'll keep watching," Stroud said from the doorway. "We'll monitor for any signs of his return, and when he resurfaces, because he will, we'll be ready." Sanaa nodded, knowing that readiness might not be enough. She'd won this battle, but the war between human choice and algorithmic control would continue. Marcus represented something larger than one brilliant, broken researcher.
He represented the temptation to surrender free will in exchange for certainty and optimization. That temptation would never completely disappear. 3 weeks later, Sanaa stood on Fort Kestrel's observation deck, watching the sunset over the mountains. She'd submitted her transfer request, classified reassignment, that would take her to wherever the next iteration of this war emerged. Dana found her there, moving with almost her old confidence, despite the lingering neural trauma. "So you're really leaving?" "The work isn't done. Marcus is still out there, and others like him will emerge. Someone needs to fight that battle." "And it has to be you?" "It has to be someone who understands both sides, who knows what it's like to be enhanced and to reject that enhancement, who can fight monsters without becoming one." Sanaa smiled slightly. "That's a pretty small recruiting pool." Dana pulled her into a fierce hug. "Stay alive. Come back when you can. Remember that you're not just what they made you. You're also who you choose to be." The words settled into Sanaa's chest like an anchor. She boarded the transport plane that evening, her orders sealed, her destination classified, her future uncertain. As the aircraft climbed into the night sky, her tablet chimed with an incoming message, encrypted, routing through channels that shouldn't exist anymore. She opened it against her better judgment. The screen flickered, then displayed a single line of text. "Hello, Operator 9. Iteration 2.0 initializing. See you soon." The message vanished before she could trace it. Sanaa stared at the blank screen, then smiled grimly. Marcus was right about one thing. This wasn't over. The code persists. The iteration continues. But so did she. And she'd keep fighting, keep choosing humanity over optimization, keep proving that human imperfection was worth defending. The plane ascended through clouds, carrying her toward whatever came next. Behind her, Fort Kestrel faded into the distance. Ahead, infinite possibility waited. The ghost network was silent. For now. Up next, we have 2 more incredible stories that are waiting for you. Just click the image you want to watch and it will take you there. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe. It would mean a lot.